My name is Sarah Mitaru Kimanthi, and I'm a singer-songwriter. And in that capacity, I have been part of a team that was nominated for an Emmy Award. I've performed locally and internationally for years. Aside from that, I've been married for 10 years and I have 2 daughters, one who is 8 and the other who's 4. I had 3 daughters and I lost one before my youngest was born. The late baby was born with birth defects and she passed away at 9 months. At around the time of the death of my child, my life took a different turn, and since then, I've been moving in a different trajectory where my character is being developed, and my life has undergone intense tests that are designed to grow me and mature me. I would like to focus on what it means to mature, and the role that grief has played in my own life in maturing me and awakening me to the reality that I need to mature.
I read a quote the other day that said, "You don't know love until you've carried a child, and you don't know pain until you've lost a child." And our guest today has experienced both. And she's here with us today on Unscripted to share her journey with us. Welcome to the show. Sarah?
Hi.
Karibu kwa show.
Thank you.
And look at you. Excuse me. Thank you for dressing up for Unscripted.
Oh my gosh, you're so
I'm hoping
welcome.
it's for us.
It is definitely for you.
You look beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Kenyan.
Yeah?
Yes.
Made by, it's a Kenyan brand?
It's actually they distribute. So it's Azami, it's found locally. For people who like a little bit of the West and a little bit of Kenya, they have both.
What you've been through is not an easy experience. 5 years ago, you were soaring in the music industry. I'm a big fan. I've known you since I was this high, watching you on stage. You're an amazing musician.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and 5 years ago, you had the song with Bien, you said, that did so well.
Yeah.
But within that same year, you also lost your child.
Yes.
You are a mother of 3 now?
2, 3, yes.
Yeah, exactly. If you could take us back to that day, what happened?
It was 2013.
2013.
And I discovered I was pregnant. And I was like, wow. I was right in the middle of traveling and being on tour.
Okay.
And so I thought this had happened before with my firstborn. This was my second born. So I was like, I can do this. I can do this. We can do this. We've had 1 child. And
because you've been a musician.
I've been a
pretty
musician
much all your life.
Pretty much all my life.
Okay.
So it was expected. We anticipated it, and it was nothing out of the ordinary. It was only until we had the child that the nurses did tell us that our daughter was born with Down syndrome. So within our sphere, both of influence and of everybody that was in our lives, we did not know what to do. We were both of us were in shock, confused, overwhelmed, but also excited because you're happy, you feel a sense of attachment when you have a newborn baby. Long story short.
So did you know when you were pregnant?
No, I didn't.
Oh, after the baby was born
is when it slipped us all. So after the baby was born is when we realized that
she had Down syndrome.
She had Down syndrome. I think also there was the naivety that we take some things for granted, that your child will be born with 10 fingers, 10 toes.
Exactly.
Breathing. We are a little bit entitled as human beings, and we expect that. And so when it didn't happen, it was a shock. We needed to be in therapy consistently every day for months. In the process, she had an injury, and then I'll never forget, on this one day, my husband fed her. She looked okay. We all had a really bad flu. He fed her because he would always feed the girls for dinner. I looked at her, I gave her a hug.
Good dad.
It's a good dad.
Yeah.
I looked at her, I gave her a hug, and I said my prayers, and I held her close, I gave her a hug, and I put her to bed. I did not realize that would be the last time that I would hold my child in her arms. But the look in her eyes, I remember that night, it's as if she knew. She was very distant.
Really?
Yes. She was unusually distant. You know how you find somebody and they're there, but then they're have a glazed look. And she was a very vibrant child.
I see. Yet she was okay, like during the day she was fine.
She was fine. And the next day, I wake up in the morning at 6, and I literally, I'll never forget, the two girls shared a room because my elder daughter is very sentimental. So she would not have her sister sleep in another room. And she was fast asleep, and I went to the cot, and I picked up my daughter, and I could feel her weight was different. It was like I was holding a book. I could literally feel there was no life. And her eyes were shut because, you know, babies are swaddled and you put them on the side. I picked her up and my heart just stopped for all of 2 seconds. Something was wrong. And when I looked at her, because she had a heart issue, she had obviously thrown up in her sleep as she was dying. And so both her mouth, and I mean, this is a bit morbid, like was clogged. So you could tell she couldn't breathe. And I stared at her and I screamed at the top of my voice and ran with her to the room where my husband was. And it was unfortunate for him because he was half asleep.
Yeah.
And I'm screaming at the top of my voice with my daughter in my arms, and I put her on the bed and I fell on my knees and I screaming, Winnie's gone, Winnie's gone, she's gone, she's gone. And I remember, I keep saying this is a moment, it was by myself, that replayed in my mind vividly for a while. I literally can see it as clear as day. Now, obviously, this conversation is biased because I am speaking as a mother of the child.
What do you mean?
You know, my conversation on grief is biased because I'm speaking as a mother. And there was her sister who was sleeping just by her side.
Did she wake up?
She didn't wake up. It was a miracle. She didn't hear a thing.
Wow.
She literally did not wake up. I cannot even explain to you how.
Okay.
There was my husband who had shock, and I remember I picked up my phone and I called one of my friends and I was screaming, she's gone, she's gone. She's like, who is gone?
Sorry.
I'm like, she's not alive anymore. So that was part of the process of me feeling like my whole world was turning in a direction that I didn't see it going. It was coincidental because I was scheduled to perform at the Africa Magic Movie Awards at the AMAs in a few days. So I was sitting, dealing with loss, calling publicists, canceling my engagement. At the time, Peace Square was performing, and I had been waiting for so long to perform on a global stage in Nigeria because at the time, the station was going to show it live. Now, my good friend, Efia, from Ghana, had performed the year before, so I was going to perform next. And we were sending emails, scribbling, and coming to terms with what had happened. The beauty about that moment is there was an exceptional amount of peace. Really? Oh yeah. It can only be called supernatural. I say it was a quagmire. In one hand, your heart is breaking. In another, there's a sense of closure because my daughter had suffered so much for the time that she was alive. Going through therapy and having to sit and watch us. You know how a kid can do this, right? When they have to pull her finger by finger to train her muscles to be able to move.
So it was hard.
It was
when she was here for the 8 months.
For 8 months, it was hard. It was difficult. It was expensive. But at that exact moment, I tell people I feel like death was in the room.
Wow.
And in all my years of thinking that I know anything, you know.
What did you realize?
I know nothing. I have no clue.
Where to start?
Clue.
What to feel, what
oh my
not
goodness.
to.
I came to terms with the fact that there was nothing I could do to bring her back from the dead. Nothing. It didn't matter how much I cried. it didn't matter how much I would scream, or I could not, it was like I was at the end of the story and there was a full stop. And I had to take a long pause and ask myself very, very many questions.
Take us through how the past 5 years have been.
Mm-hmm. I would not be able to audibly or find the right words to explain grief. However, I can paint a picture. I actually, on the contrary, believe that where you're standing determines how you grieve.
What do you mean?
At the initial point, what you're dealing with is loss.
Yes.
So you're staring at loss in the face, and the reality that this child or this person is no longer with me. You know, and to limit grief to the loss of someone, it can even look different. You know, it can be a relationship, it can be whatever grief is. For some people, you had a dream and you have to come to terms with the fact that this dream will not happen. Or where I am standing right now, I will never become the thing I'm supposed to be because of what you see. So I tell people grief depends on where you're standing.
So has that been a journey in the past 5 years? Has that changed? Mm-hmm. Where you're standing?
Yes, it always changes. So when you interact with it, the first stage is your interaction. So for me, the first stage it was like a blur. And I asked the question, why me? So the first is always, why me? Why do bad things have to happen to me? Why not the person down the street? Why not this person? I'm better than them. Why does it always have to be me? And that is a perspective.
On that note,
yes,
we take a short break, and when we come back, getting to point 3 of asking, why did this have to happen and how do I move forward? We'll be right back and hear from Sarah on that journey. Welcome back to Unscripted. We're still here with Sarah Mutari, the amazing musician, but today is here for a different reason. 5 years ago, you unfortunately lost your daughter, and you're taking us through that grieving process. You mentioned earlier, you asked yourself, what is this? Why me? And the third question, which for me I find it's very hard, what is the purpose of this pain? How did you answer those questions, Sarah? Or how did you go through that process? Yes.
One of the things I had to come to terms with is that we are, like say, tripartite.
Yes.
Body, soul, and spirit.
That's true.
And each one is affected by grief.
That's
I lost
deep.
so much weight because I couldn't eat at the time, you know. And many years later, now I can be like, oh, that's what that was.
Then you don't know what's happening.
No. And sometimes, or you go to the other extreme, you eat too much. You know, it's your body responds in one way. Some people just shut down.
Okay.
And then there's your soul and your spirit. From your spirit, if you have a relationship with God, you feel like you've been crushed.
Yes.
And been broken into so many little spirits.
So for you, did it draw you closer to him, or did you push you further?
I think
because it can happen both ways.
It can happen both ways.
Yeah.
For me, it did the opposite. It drew me closer to God.
Oh, thank God.
Because I would cry out, and nothing really is able to heal that level of pain. As I mentioned earlier, everything is about where you're standing when you see it.
Yes.
Over time, my perspective slowly started to change.
Okay.
I started to understand life from the perspective that there has to be more. You know that statement of there has to be more. And where I was standing kept changing. I would then not see things as they were, but seek to find a truly, truly, truly deeper meaning as to why this was happening. Now, for somebody to engage in and look within, it means that every aspect of your life is going to be questioned. I always say that we don't bifurcate your life. I'll give you an example. If you're having a bad day at home, by the time you get to work, that bad day will have spilled over.
That's true.
To work.
Yeah.
So we don't divide our lives into different sections.
Yeah.
Because we roll in and out of what we do every day. So I had to look really, really deep inside and figure out questions like, who am I? Why am I here? Why do I do what I do? What's happening to me? Where will I be in 15 years?
Yeah.
Is there more? What's the point? You know, I had to go through a whole cycle of things that allowed me to change where I was standing.
Okay.
The information that comes across to you in the time of grief will always determine where you stand. Around me was a support system that did not necessarily have the grief that I had. They had empathy, but for them it was important that I came onto the other side.
Of healing.
Exactly. So their perspective was never my perspective, but they were gracious enough to allow me to take my time.
Yes.
To come into who I was supposed to be, who I am supposed to be, and what I am supposed to be in life.
I like how you said they were gracious enough to let you take your time. I think for when tragedy happens, it could be death, or remember last week I had a guest, a lady who was at Westgate, and her and her kids were there and they experienced it. You will still have triggers. She will still enter a mall and panic if she hears a loud noise or look for the exits. And her lesson therein was you can't rush to healing.
What I didn't realize is for 2.5 years, I thought I was fine. And then every now and then, something would happen and I would know, oh my, I'm actually not okay. But what had been changing over the 2 years was my perspective.
Okay.
How I saw my pain was changing. It's almost as if I was standing at 60,000 feet, looking down at the situation, having a broader, much broader view on what was happening. When you ask the question, what, why, and how, what is this, allows you to interact with grief from the place of that's painful, that's hard. Why did this happen? Take a step back. For anybody to get through grief, you must ask the question why. But you have to remove the me from it. You have to stop saying why me, step back and say why.
So in fact, begs the question, how do you answer why is this happening? Did you do that in the situation?
Of course. You have to remove the me from the why. So we usually say why me. Why me is, it's necessary in the beginning because we are looking at life from the lens of a victim. This has happened to me. And the problem...
And in that moment you are.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And it is, like I said, everything is in stages. We cannot deny, I cannot pretend that I did not have a why me. But there has to be a place whereby you transition out of the why me to why. Not why is this happening to me? Why is this happening?
What is the purpose of this pain?
Yes, at that exact moment. If you literally, as I said, I don't want to sound like I pulled something out of a book because it never works. If you take the me and you cancel it and you write on a book why, then you consciously say, okay, I'm going to begin to look at the positive side. What good could have come out of this? That is a very, very, very painful thing to do. When you feel like you're bleeding from your eyes and your teeth and, you know, like you're all cried out, all, you know, all done.
And you're meant to look for purpose.
Yes. However, it is not something that you do right in the center of grief, because if you do it too soon, you'll cycle back and come around. When you feel ready to move beyond that point, you say, okay, why?
At what point did you get there? There could be someone at home who may have gone through, lost a child. At what point do you say, okay, it's time to transition?
I was like, I think one of the most shocking things for me was after we were done burying our child and everything, the landlord still needed his rent. I thought that time would stand still. Wow. That was a big
wake-up call.
Oh my goodness.
Just
that statement was enough to let me know time hasn't stood still.
Which is hard.
Yeah. When life needed to continue happening, and I wanted so badly for life to stop. But that particular thing for me was, oh wow, things are still moving on as they are. That was not when I said why, but it was a reality check for me as
when
to
it
the fact
started.
that, oh yeah, I mean, how many friends have we sung at the dad's funeral, the mom's funeral, and 2 weeks later they have to be at work. They have to take their kids to school. You know, time doesn't stand still. So at any point when you're ready and you ask the question why, and you consciously say, I'm going to find the good in this thing. If within your spirit you say, oh my gosh, God, you don't have to be a Christian. I'm not even going to overhype the whole thing. I truly believe that in crisis, something in us screams, oh God. Yes. It doesn't matter who you are, something within you is going to scream at the top of its voice.
There's got to be another strength carrying
yes, you will. If you can take a step back and write why, you'll slowly begin to see things that have happened that had not happened before. For me, my family came together, my in-laws, my immediate family, they came together in a way that till today I have no words. It's almost like every difference that we all had, it didn't matter at that point in time. To watch my brother and my brother-in-law and my sisters-in-law cry, to see the devastated look on my father-in-law's face and my father's face, and my mother and my mother-in-law, it's almost as if we stood in one place and we shared something in common. It came at a price, but this, at that moment, was different. You'll find that with grief, if you take a step back, you'll begin to see small little things that have changed in a good way because of the grief. But you have to be ready to see them. And that's why I said how you see this is dependent on where you're standing. When you begin to ask the question, why, and not why me, you're making a decision to take a 60,000-foot perspective, which is from a high place. And then your view is going to change. That is the first step to healing.
Oof. This is heavy.
First. It is.
This is heavy, Sarah.
It is.
To someone at home who may have gone through grief, may have lost someone in their life, as Sarah has said, the first step to healing is how you view the situation, and it takes time. When we come back, Sarah takes us more through this process. Keep it here. Welcome back to Unscripted. We're here with Sarah Mitaru. Thank you for sharing your very, it's a powerful story. It takes a lot of bravery and being vulnerable, so we are extremely grateful.
You're most welcome.
Yes, I know there's someone at home who needs to hear this. You've mentioned having a why is very important when you go through pain, like finding the purpose in that situation, which makes sense. It helps you cross over to the other side of healing. If you could, what was your why in this?
I was forced to view grief and loss from different angles, as it were. I think that the first thing that was questioned is I had put on myself a jacket of an identity that was not real. I was a mother, right? My identity, we are mothers, but that's not who we are in totality. So then I questioned, did I do the right thing? Should I have, I blamed myself for a very long time. So then if motherhood was an identity, and look at it as a pillar, it came crashing down, okay? If a wife was an identity, which it was, I am a wife, had been at the time for 8 years, right? I'm not able to manage this, I'm not strong. That pillar came crashing down. So the first thing that loss does is it makes you question things that you have called your identity, but maybe are not truly who you are, because to limit yourself to I am
to a role.
X, if that is questioned, then you have to question everything else about yourself. So the most, it took me years, and I would really like to emphasize that asking the question why is not an overnight thing, and that's okay. Everything is a journey, it's a process. How a teenager perceives things is not how a 2-year-old is going to perceive things. I I believe that the loss of my child brought down all these pillars that were my identity. Because then I fell flat on my face and I had to, I was like, oh, okay, so who am I? And if I did not go through this at that time, then I would have to do it much later in life. And I believe the repercussions, the consequences would be more dire because there'd be more to lose.
The past 5 years has been you answering the question, who am I?
Oh, obviously. You know, I cannot say that the last 5 years, that's all I've done is sit in a hole and be sad, you know. But these pillars were...
You've been intentional.
Oh my goodness, they were brought down. Yes. The second thing is, I did not realize how flawed I was as a person. I still am. That my character was in question. Yes. Because at that moment, death and totality was final. It was final. So there was a mirror staring at me and I had to look inward. And the last 5 years has been unraveling of this, I like to say, this terrible thing that was me, you know, in the hope that I would become somebody better. I had to come to terms with the fact that I was not a good person. Yes. And people can define good based on their own standards, yes. you know. But at one point or another, we have to account for our actions, our behavior, our thought process. And it's still, for me, a very ongoing process. I was never in the culture of examining myself.
This made you do that?
Totally. I usually feel like I'll have to examine myself or life will have to examine me. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not even close to the end product, but I am fully aware of my weakness. Fully aware. Something that I was not ready to do because I was looking at it like, listen, I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter, my work is to go up there, gig, do whatever it takes, make it, you know, everything was the hustle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, do it, get it done. Now I am constantly aware of my weakness. So even my conversation today, I'm not saying, wow, I came through on the other side. No, no, no.
What are you saying?
I'm saying I am extremely flawed. And the beginning of me examining myself was that moment, which means that there is hope for me to become a different person in the next 15 years.
Even better version of yourself.
A better version. Yeah, a different. I want to be a different person. Is to be all that I can be in that space. That particular moment of burying my child, having a coffin this size put right in front of you, because you, as a parent, you have to sit in front of the coffin. And it was this size. And I thought, one day that's going to be me, and I need to change. I need to change. So I think we all have the opportunity in grief, when we are ready, to ask the question, why? Because if we look really well, every place of pain is the ability to gain a muscle that allows you to go into places you never imagined at every stage of life. You become resilient, you become more empathetic, you become more aware, you become kinder. If children are around me, before I will ignore them, now I will pay attention, you know. If I see somebody in pain, I will stop. So it allows you as a person, oh yeah, and to mature. It's like being in the gym. It pulls and it tugs at you. So therefore pain is not, it's not complete and total loss. It matures you. Look at I'm speaking to anybody who's gone through grief. Please look at who you were 2 years ago.
And who you are today. You
will be surprised.
I feel like that's a powerful ending point, but I'm not done. I feel like holding on to you for like the next 3 shows. That is so powerful. Thank you for that. But you had mentioned, because as you're changing, you still have people around you.
Yes.
You have family, children, husband, friends. How did this affect those relationships?
Some went well, some went really badly. I usually shy away from speaking about my married life in public because being in the limelight, I said there's some things that I want to be able to just open the door and close. And also I like to give the respect to my husband, who's also a music producer, to have his own freedom to speak about it. But I would be able to share in general. I think my friends were grieving and I didn't know how to comfort them. And therefore, a lot of our relationships fell by the side because I was trying to survive in my own grief.
Think about that.
You never think about it.
Like in your grief, you're also meant to help
Yes.
grieve with others.
Because they feel as a part of you. Like your daughters, your sister probably feels like they're her own kids, you know. Your friends feel like those are their own kids. They come for birthdays and parties and that kind of a thing. So you, as I said, this identity pillars, you're trying to comfort people because it's natural for you to comfort people, but you're also
going through your process.
Oh my goodness, it's terrible.
So even that was a journey.
It was a complete journey. My letting my family grieve as they desired, you know, was critical and fundamental. For my daughter, probably, I will speak about my daughter because of people who have other children. We had to be very clear to her that her sister was gone and she wasn't coming back. Now, I tell people, a child between the age of 3 and 6 will understand you as clearly as you say it. You cannot afford to be ambiguous. So we said, when you were sick, she's gone. She's gone to heaven. Now, you can't close the door to that's the end. There has to be, with children, you have to give them hope, because if you defer hope, they will be sick. You cannot defer hope. So then you have to tell her, you will see her in another life, you know. So then she's hopeful of that.
So she remembers the sister and she's hopeful.
Oh, totally. So then her perspective is not, death doesn't seem like an end, but there is hope attached to it.
It's a journey to another world.
We did not allow her to go to the gravesite. People have different, you know, because we wanted the picture that she had not to be horrific.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I'd like to, you are a mother of 2 now.
Yes.
How was it deciding to have another child? And after losing a child, you must parent differently, or I'd imagine. Did that change how you parent?
That's a good question. I was very traumatized. For the whole time I had my daughter, I couldn't put her in the cot to bed. Oh yes. So you do have some things that don't go away. I am not able to.
It's PTSD.
Yeah, it feels like that. To pick, when a child is crying and they're in their cot, I hesitate a little bit. So that stayed with me. I tried everything. It didn't go.
So you slept with her instead, in your bed?
No, I put her in the cot because we train our kids from when they're young. So my husband was gracious enough to be the one who...
Okay, to do it himself.
Yes, I will do everything else, but in the morning especially, I would have a hard time picking her up from her cot. Just because I had a disability didn't mean that I changed how I parented. It was my responsibility to actually get past my phobias so that I don't damage my daughter in the process, you know. So finding the balance, I guess that's where friends, family, and it was a whole, raising our daughter, I say she grew up in the public, you know, public here not being on television, but in the community. Somebody would come, pick up, you know, everybody was very, very kind, very gracious. My sister was instrumental in helping that process. So
support system has seen you through this.
Yes.
So as we wrap up, we can say, what next? What next for Sarah?
I mean,
will you still do music?
Yes.
Do you have new stuff out? What should you expect from me? What's in store?
So thank you for having this conversation with me, because I had to answer the question, where have you been for 5 years? Every time, Sarah, where have you been?
Really? People have been asking, where have you been? Well,
So
now you know.
Now I know, now everybody knows.
Yeah,
I mean,
that break was necessary.
It was. Getting back into doing what I do best. For me, it's a job. So I have new music out. You'll see the video at the end. I'm still a popular, music singer. So.
An amazing musician. I've tried to get her to sing today.
By popular, I don't mean I'm famous. It means that I sing pop music. Pop equals popular.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you don't know that?
Of course we knew that, right? I see. Yes. Okay. So you still have plans to...
Oh, I've just released a song. I did a soft launch, which is just put it up on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube, my channel, you should be able to find it. I've been performing over the last couple of months.
Yes, you've been busy.
I've been busy
on the ground, yeah.
But I think after this now, I will be more in the music sphere. And
you're ready?
In this place, yeah, I think
You're ready?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on the show. We really, really appreciate it. Okay. I know that wasn't an easy conversation to have, so thank you. To someone at home who may have experienced grief or is going through it, I hope Sarah has given you pointers on how to handle that journey and the process. That's what Unscripted is about, getting all of us together to that place of healing. Thank you so much for watching. You can catch us online. The handles are right below. Do share with us your story. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, do have yourself a good one. God bless. Niyo light yako, imagine. God bless.